Afternoon. Welcome to the February 2025 Law and Regulation Committee. Helen, would you go over the meeting procedures for us?
Just short and simple, if you wish to speak to an item not on today's agenda, you may do so under public comment by calling 916-774-5353. In addition, items listed on the agenda are open for public comment at the time they are heard, with a 3-minute time limit for each speaker by again calling 916-774-5353.
Thanks very much. Roll call.
Councilmember Mendonça and Vice Mayor Howdeshire.
Here. Councilmember Mendonça, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You know what threw me off is this meeting is not a Zoom meeting, so I'm used to the usual, the executive order, so on and so forth. Now is the time for public comment. So anyone who 30 seconds to see if anyone calls in to 916-774-5353 and has any public comment on any item, non-agenda item. Hearing no one, we'll move to the next item, which is 5.1, the minutes of the prior meetings. And for us, we have the minutes of December 11th, 2019, the City Council Law and Regulation, the meeting of February 26th, 2020, City Council Law and Regulation, and the September 23rd City Council meeting. Any to review? I don't have any comments on that. Councilman Mendonça, anything you saw that?
Nothing stood out.
All right. We will just, move consent. The minutes of those 3 previous meetings of 2019 and 2020. Except for us today, our reports committee staff, and we'll start off with Amber Blix, our electric Department priority legislation for Feb 2021.
Good afternoon, Vice Mayor Howdeshire, Councilmember Mendonça. I thought I would start off our electric department priority legislation with kind of an update status of our. We're beginning the first year of a 2-year session, and on February 19th, last week, was the bill introduction deadline, last day for bill to be introduced. So is currently going through all the recently introduced bills, which there are several. A few key ones that I'm going to talk in this report are on natural gas and building decarbonization, to wildfires, and also related to renewable energy and zero carbon. And then we'll also touch on one bill on the federal side, which is the Supporting Local Leaders Act. So the first is AB 33 by Assemblymember Ting, which is related to gas, and this bill would prohibit new public buildings for which construction begins after January 1st, 2022 from natural gas connections, but it also require publicly owned utilities to establish a schedule of rates and charges for the provision of electric service to electric homes. And this is one that we're going to be continuing to monitor as the session goes on. We have a watch position on it now, given that it has the potential for increasing the role for the electric sector. We've gotten news that this bill might not be moving forward for its current form, but we expect that it could come into play in another vehicle later this session. Similarly, the next bill, S 30, is on building decarbonization, and this bill will require after January 1st, 2020, a state agency shall not design or construct a state facility connected to the natural gas grid where feasible. The Department of General Services will develop the California State Build Decarbonization plan that will lead to the operational carbon neutrality of all state-owned buildings by January 1, 2035 where feasible. And in addition, after January 1, 2023, a state agency would be prohibited from providing funding or other support for construction of residential and non-residential buildings that are connected to the natural gas. I put these two together, AB 33 and SB, because they're very similar in terms of setting precedent for future. This one could set precedent for future construction of residential and non-residential buildings, and this would also have the potential of increasing the electric sector in areas that have traditionally been responsibility of natural gas utilities. Just wanted to let that committee know that these are on the horizon and things the legislature will be looking at in the coming year. Slide, please. Following that, we have AB 52, which is related to the scoping plan updates and wildfires. And this requires CARB to include recommendations for achieving the maximum technologically feasible and cost-effective reductions of emissions from wildfires and black carbon in their scoping plan updates prepared after next year. And it also expresses the intent of the legislature to appropriate from the GHG reduction fund for wildfire mitigation and prevention. This bill doesn't currently have a direct impact on publicly owned utilities, but it could encourage or expand the use of the greenhouse gas reduction fund for wildfire prevention activities. So we're going to be monitoring how that appropriation is looked at going forward. That's becoming an increased problem in the state of California. Slide. On renewable energy, zero carbon, the topic that we generally deal with every year, AB 64 work. And this bill states the intent of the legislature to enact future legislation that would require PUC, CARB, and other balancing authorities to develop strategy on to achieve 100% renewable energy and carbon by 2045 in a cost-effective and environmentally beneficial manner. And the strategy would include a plan to promote the development of technologies that can help achieve the state policy. And we're going to continue to watch this bill to see what those strategies and technologies may be for getting to those long-term goals and to see if there'll be any future requirements in that regard. Next. Similarly, SB 69 by Senator Becker is a clergy bill. And this bill states the intent of the legislature to enact future legislation to accelerate California's progress towards 100% electricity provided by renewable and zero carbon sources on a 24-hour, 7-day basis to the existing requirements that we already have. And it also states the intent to set an earlier target for achieving the 100% clean energy, and for carbon, the PUC, the California Public Utility Commission, to establish a system to track clean energy on an hourly basis. It also speaks to potentially setting procurement targets based on time of and season. And while that doesn't apply to publicly owned utilities in the bill, we're watching that to see if it could potentially be expanded to apply to it. And we have a watch position on this bill, but if the bill gains additional momentum, we would probably reassess that position because this could have a big effect on the electric utility in terms of our options and our reliability planning and also our rates. And finally, on the federal bills, we have HR 786, which is the State and Local Leaders Act. And in the Families First Response Act of 2020, public employers were required to provide new paid sick and family leave, but were excluded from tax credits that were made available to private employers. This bill would remove the exclusion and allow public employers to receive the tax credits and to cover some of the local costs from 2020. So the city of Electric is currently supporting this measure through our membership American Public Association, as we see this being a good reversal of the exclusion that was originally included in that act. So with that, our preliminary review, we're continuing to go through many of the bills that have been introduced last week, but that kind of gives you a flavor for the things that have been presented so far.
Councilmember Mendon, do you have any questions?
No question.
A couple of questions, and one, you're certainly free to respond after this. But think of the unseasonable weather in Texas last week, and the going down there. Question at my house is, how do we risk that here on the west?
So I think that people are already comparing California and Texas based on when last summer the California outages. I know we gave a report to this committee at that time. Roseville was very fortunate in that we were one of the utilities that was not affected because we're connected to the grid in a different way. So I think we have a lot of safeguards in place to avoid that kind of thing. But given those events of last summer, it will be something that will be looked at in the legislature this year, and also at the level, given that it's happening in multiple states.
Yes, certainly who are not Roseville electric customers and are dependent upon other sources of energy know that the loss of power for 18 hours can be detrimental to perishable products and things like that, and have to prepare for that. We're fortunate, and we have a diversified portfolio. Today would be a day for wind power, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
And then I think we've got now Mr. Wilson may be talking about this a little bit, but some folks, and we've had this at the city council. Some folks who are unable to pay their bills. There's still some forgiveness and some not forgiveness, but there's some plans to work with them on making sure that they can pay their bills.
Yes, we continue to have suspension of disconnection policy ongoing, and we've been working on enrolling in customers into our ERAP program, which is our assistant program, and really trying to work with our customers to help during this difficult time. But something that we can follow. It's an evolving issue at the state level, and continue to be one that everyone is watching.
Actually, Bruce,
Go
you
ahead.
triggered something on my mind. So I know you just mentioned about the suspension of the disconnect of the server. I know we talked about this at one of the prior council meetings too, but are we still thinking that we may, at state level or even at a federal level, be asked to forgive some of those? I mean, we end up taking a loss on those. Let's say someone hasn't paid their bill for 4 or 5 months or whatever. I don't know how long we're allowing this, but at some point they would have to become current. But are we hearing that there might be some forgiveness at a state or federal level where we wouldn't be able to collect that?
I think details of that are still being worked out, and it's been evolving on a daily basis. Some of my colleagues might address this too, but there are efforts underway currently in the legislature to look at how we deal with that in the utility infrastructure side of things. I know there was just recently some stuff on the rental assistance side. I think the assumption there is that probably gets used for rental assistance rather than utility assistance. There's kind of multiple plays on tracks going on, is I guess how I would characterize it right now, and so they're ongoing and yet to be fully defined.
Okay. Just wondering, 'cause I heard it and didn't know if there was an update, so thank you.
Yeah, great.
Great. We'll open this for public comment. We'll give folks some time to call in. Again, the number is 916-774-5353. And unless there's somebody who's calling for public comment, you can.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for your report. We'll wait a few minutes to see if anyone has an electric question. Doesn't sound like. So we'll move to our next item, which is item 6.22. I just lost my agenda. Can I see your agenda for a second? Thank you very much. And that's a report from Environmental Utilities and Maris Tricas.
Good afternoon, Vice Mayor Haudeshelt and Councilmember Mendonça. On behalf of EU Government Relations, we'll be providing recommendations on wastewater and recycled water. Oh, sorry, slide. I'll be providing recommendations on wastewater and recycled water. Following that, I'll pause for any questions, and then I'll pass it to Noel Maddock, who will discuss water and waste services matters for EU. And then she'll for questions before turning it back to Mark. So after our staff report was submitted, the Biden administration pulled from the federal docket this first, I guess, advanced notice of proposed rulemaking. And it essentially seeks public comment and data to assist in the consideration and potential development of future regulations for per and polyfluoroalkyl alcohol substances. The umbrella term is PFAS. So PFAS is a group of man-made synthetic chemicals, which US EPA was considering designating biosolids as hazards under Comprehensive Environmental Response Compensation and Liability Act, or as you all have heard, CERCLA. This act is also known as a Superfund, which essentially mandates the cleanup of uncontrolled or abandoned hazardous waste, as well as accidents, spills, and other emergency release of pollutants and contaminants into the environment. So the good news is pulling this proposed rule is really good for the city, because our wastewater treatment plants easily produce about 100 tons of biosolids per day, which actually trucked to a facility approved by US EPA for land application purposes. So just a little bit on land application. It's a really safe, cost-effective method of waste disposal through the beneficial reuse of solids, where they actually act as natural fertilizers around the region. This also helps to decrease the city's landfill costs. So we're opposed to that, but just as the update, it has been pulled. Moving along to state, much like how Amber updated, a lot of bills reduced this week. So there are 2 bills here that were not included in the staff report was submitted, and both of which I'll discuss. The first is AB 3377, and was introduced by Assemblymember Rivas, called Impaired Waters and Limitations on NPDES Permitting, and it's sponsored by the California Coastkeeper Alliance. So this bill would prevent the state board or regional boards from issuing NPDES permits for discharges that would cause an exceedance of existing quality standards. So what's missing here in this bill is essentially the definition of water quality standards. It really doesn't make sense, because if you have a discharge of stormwater or wastewater that has to meet drinking quality standards, it sort of defeats the purpose. So we recommend an opposed position on this bill right now. I gave a little bit of an update earlier today, but that's a recommendation. So we'll be sure to keep you all informed on that. The next was not included on the staff report, but was introduced, is AB 818, and that's the Bloom, under the Assemblymember Bloom, under that's our pre-moisten. The bill name's changed, so it's now pre-moisten non-woven disposal wipes, commonly known, the last 2 I've been discussing, as our the wipes bills, the collection wipes. So just a little bit of background on this bill. The sale or advertisement of any disposable wipe product labeled flushable or sewer septic safe prohibited. Flushable wipes are made of material that do not break apart and cause blockages within our wastewater system. And during the pandemic, the wastewater treatment utility also saw a dramatic increase in use of, non-flushable wipes. So we're recommending that we support this bill. And then another fact is that Roseville has about 700 miles of collection system and treatment plant equipment, which requires intensive manual labor and other resources to remove and clear these flushable wipes that tend to be hot in our systems and really initiate major blockages that cost the city money. So really am urging support on this bill. The next bill is SB 230, and that was introduced by Senator Portantino, and that's the State Water Resources Control Board, constituents of Emerging Concern Program, and we're recommending a watch position right now. This bill require the State Water Resources Control Board to establish, maintain, and direct ongoing program, very similar to the US EPA CCs, or Constituents of Emerging Concern Program, and it'll essentially just assess the state of and recommended areas for further study on, and including the occurrence of CECs in our constituents' water. This bill is SB 273, and that was introduced by Hertzberg, and that's called the Municipal Wastewater Agency and Stormwater Management Bill, and we recommend a watch. This bill would authorize a municipal wastewater agency to partner with entities responsible for stormwater management for purpose of managing weather runoff, and also acquire, construct, and expand other stormwater projects. So it's essentially just allowing more collaboration between wastewater and stormwater, which is really, really good. So we are watching it, but right now we don't have a position to learn a little bit more. Additionally, the State Water Resources Control Board, there was the implementation of the short-lived climate pollutant regulation. Given this is our law regulation committee, I wanted to just highlight how regulation is important and critical to EU to watch. Even after legislation is signed into law, it's not the end of the cycle for EU, for our department. Regulations are critically important for us to engage, and this regulation was actually signed into law in 2016. So it essentially is called SB 1383, and it establishes methane reduction targets and statewide efforts to reduce these emissions for short-lived climate pollutants in various sectors of California's economy. It really is related across EU issue, specifically under wastewater. As I just discussed, our biosolids, we are watching this this past regulation from the biosolids perspective in regards to organic waste disposal. So, 100 tons a week is quite a lot. So we're really seeing what they do with this reg. And then other activities, we had the South Placer Water Authority, also known as PWA board meeting at the end of January, and we discussed some projects that are going in EU's Pleasant Grove wastewater treatment plant. For the public, the Roseville public, the board is represented by Vice Mayor Houdeschelt and Councilmember Alvord, and also other city staff who serve in that role are Ken Kwok, who is the executive director, Dennis Kaufman, who's our treasurer, Cam Walsh, who is the secretary. So that was a good meeting. And then two more, the Water Infrastructure Finance and Innovation update. We've briefed most of you on this, but just to reiterate it for the public, we're looking to have the US EPA administrator sign on this credit program for the city. We're looking at about $68 million, which includes the reserve of $1 million. So the loan close date now is slated for 23rd. The US EPA administrator, should he confirm, it would be Michael Reagan, who currently heads the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality. And we'll see that on a Friday, so we'll implement the interest rate on that day as well. And then finally, the US EPA released a workforce development grant. So essentially, they're soliciting applications until March 26th, and is going to assist in the development and use of innovative activities related to workforce, water, wastewater development, and career opportunities in the utility sector. So we're currently exploring that from the water division. We're probably going to partner with Sierra College for this up to $500,000 just to help with our certification for our maintenance and other operators for the wastewater. So I'll be sure to keep you posted. So that's all from the wastewater division. If the committee has any questions.
What a thorough report.
Thank you.
I mean, exhausted. It does score that there is a lot going on legislative, and I appreciate the regulatory aspect of the implementation of the legislation, because the creation of the idea and the implementation are quite different and need to be followed. So, thank you for the 377 update. Sorry, I thought Pittsburgh's bill, but I know CMUA and the Special District Association, which Melissa Silhigh from Lincoln is very involved in, is just trying to bill. So,
Yep.
I'm glad to hear there's a lot behind that. I don't think I have any other questions, or I don't think I formed a question in any of it. But I know that at one point in time, we've expressed our interest as a city manager in doing an infrastructure tour, and we certainly want to have, the wastewater treatment facilities on there because there's a lot going on. And the question is, I knew there was a question in there, is with the legislation when it's introduced, is there a fiscal analysis that's formed either at the legislature or independently here amongst our staff?
Might refer that question to Mark, but I would say the science-based, from a science perspective, there definitely needs to be economic feasibility before anything can become and put into law. So would that be, Mark, you think?
And there have been efforts through the legislature to require more analysis being completed. It's been spotty to have that occur. So it's been something that has been requested previously, but again, it's been spotty of when those are actually must occur.
Would make sense. I think I agree.
Well, in constituent emerging concerns, are there laboratory standards, or are there laboratories with each of those? I think PFAS is in there. I think neonicotinoids is in there. There are these, but the cost for laboratory analysis of these things.
Sure. So
is taken into consideration.
Absolutely, and it's interesting you mentioned that the State Water Resources Control Board is looking to implement in 2023 an environmental lab accreditation program, right, which the wastewater division oversees two labs here. So we're closely watching these measures and how the assessment how this assessment will implicate as far as go, but I guess call it a regulation as well. This has drastically increased fees for our labs. So we are watching that, but it was passed into law.
And then that shows up in rates.
Yes.
Yeah.
Again until 2023. So we're still doing a lot of our preliminary.
I mean, that's all of this actively, right?
Sure.
When we had our last rate case, the ELAP, the Environmental Lab Accreditation Program, showed up as a line item in the rate. And I know you and our staff tried to raise it with the regulator, right? Let me just put it that way.
And then just thought. To your question on a tour for the SPWA board, we're more than happy to give you all a tour. I think we were going to be planning one soon, so okay. That'll be great if you come out to Pleasant Grove.
Good. And then we transport some of our biosolids out to the landfill, and that's where the connection is with that piece of legislation that you were talking about, correct?
Yep, that's exactly right. For our Dry Creek wastewater treatment, that's where we ship the biosolids to the EPA-approved site, the Pleasant Grove wastewater treatment plant. They bring those biosolids to the landfill. So that's a lot going in every day.
Okay, great. All right, well, we'll see if anyone wants to have public comment on this.
You can just wait until after the whole item's done.
Oh, the whole item. I'm still in training.
No problem.
Finish.
And now I'll turn it over to my counterpart, Will Maddock. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry. so much here. Good afternoon, Vice Mayor Howdy-Schultz and Council Member Mendonça. The first bill I would like to cover for the Water Division, AB 1434. This bill was actually not covered in the report as it was introduced on Friday, which was bill introduction. You may recall that in 2018, after years of negotiations and carefully crafted language, the legislature passed and Governor Brown signed into law AB 668 and 606, which is commonly referred to as conservation legislation. The two-bill package established new water use objectives and reporting requirements. In 2023, water suppliers are to calculate an aggregate water use objective made up of indoor and outdoor usage plus water loss to give agencies like a water budget. If our agency exceeds our water budget, we are subject to fines by the State Water Board. Specifically, AB 1668 by Assemblywoman Friedman set the indoor standard at 55 gallons per capita daily until 2025, and 52.5 GPCD until 2030, and then 50 GPCD, subject to review and evaluation of feasibility by the Department of Water Resources and the State Board. AB 1434 goes back on our negotiation with this author on the indoor water use standards and sets new indoor standards at 48 gallons per capita daily in 2023 and 44 GPCD beginning in 2025 and 40 GPCD starting in 2030. And this is without the benefit of an evaluation of feasibility by WR or the State Water Board. The next bill is SB 222. This measure would establish the Water Affordability Assistance Fund in the State Treasury. It would be used to create a water affordability assistance program for both drinking water and wastewater services. The fund would be made available on an appropriation to the legislature for direct water bill assistance, water bill credits, water crisis assistance, affordability assistance, and short-term assistance to public water systems to administer the program components. Bill supports the development of a statewide low-income rate assistance program. However, we have concerns with this bill as it is introduced. Two examples of our concern are that the bill does not include a fund source. The bill proposes to expand the program to include sewer assistance, which was not contemplated in the AB 401 report from which the legislation was derived. I am actively engaged in groups at our associations where just yesterday we began the process of mocking up the bill with our amendment. The biggest sticking point is going to be the funding source. The next bill is SB 223, which would amend and extend required protocols and procedures disconnection of water service due to non-payment that were established with the passage of SB 998 in 2018. Roseville has two main concerns. SB 223 proposes to undo a number of key points to help to negotiate into SB 998. Additionally, SB 998 became effective only February 1st of 2020, just before COVID-19 pandemic hit the United States. All water providers have prohibited water shutoffs due to non-payment, and so the current law has not had the time nor the benefit of full implementation. The author of the bill is currently concerned that as we emerge from the pandemic, that customers' water will be shut off due to non-payment. I would like to make it clear that Roseville is committed to ensuring our customers who have been hardest hit economically are able to emerge from this pandemic without fear of their water being shut off. The next item is an update on the federal COVID relief for utility arrearages. In late December, the federal government approved a second COVID relief package totaling $900 billion. There are actually two pots of funding that could help utilities and residents with their mounting utility debt. $25 billion was provided to help with rental and utility arrearages, and $138 million was provided to implement the low-income household drinking water and wastewater emergency assistance program that the states could apply to receive. An additional $500 million is included in the current relief package, making it through Congress for water and wastewater arrearages. While the state has already determined how it plans to distribute the approximate $2.6 billion in rental assistance it expects to receive, what has not been determined is how the state will distribute its share of $630 million for utility assistance. Of note, the federal government is not even expected to release its guidelines until next month, and we're hearing that they are proposing that it might flow through the LIHEAP program, with the Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program. Of course, this is an expansion of a current program to include water and wastewater utilities. As developments occur, we will absolutely keep you apprised as to how that's going. Next slide. Thank you. For our Waste Services Division, I have 3 bills. The first one is AB 96, which is a reintroduction from last year. The measure would extend the requirement 20% of funding be used to support early commercial of existing zero and near zero emission heavy duty truck technology until December 31st of 2026. And it also provides a technical and clarifying change to the definitions of zero and near zero emissions technology to include vehicles certified to meet the most stringent low oxides of nitrogen, NOx, emission standards. This is important because environmental utilities is in the process of converting the solid waste fleet to these low NOx engines, which will be fueled by renewable natural gas through a partnership with the wastewater division. This bill is AB 332, aims to our residents and businesses properly dispose of treated wood waste. As of January 1, 2021, treated wood commonly used to build fences, gazebos, planter boxes are required to be disposed of at a Class 1 hazardous waste facility. This requires a whole lot of new requirements, like limiting the time that the wood can be sitting on property to about 90 days. It also requires certain labeling and shipping requirements as well. Given the limited access to the Class 1 hazardous waste sites in California and these new complex rules, it is likely we would see an increase in the illegal dumping of these materials. This bill will allow our community members to continue to dispose of treated wood waste in composting landfill, as they have done over the past 16 years without any significant environmental issues. The next measure is SB 244, which is a reintroduction of AB 59 from last year, which would have prevented the improper disposal of lithium-ion batteries into the waste stream, creating a recycling program for both loose lithium-ion batteries as well as those that are embedded in products. Roseville supports the prohibition of someone knowingly disposing of these items, as we've actually experienced fires in our refuse trucks due to the improper disposal of them. The last item is just kind of an overall general end in the Waste Services Division on legislation. You heard Amber talk about the February 19th deadline. About 2,500 bills were introduced by that introduction deadline. Of those, about 13 have identified that are just on recycling, and some are revisiting current programs and others are creating new programs. There's also an additional measure that would actually define lithium-ion batteries and put them into the current battery recycling program. So we're not sure where all of these are going to end up. The rest of a lot of bills that were introduced, especially on the last day, are in what was spot bill form, which means their intent language, and they do not have the substance in them yet. So they'll morph and change. And so we will be back if we find anything that is really concerning. And with that, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. Councilman Mendoza.
I just wanted to clarify on the AB 96 Clean Truck, Bus, and Road Vehicle and Equipment Technology Program that we're supporting. That's the one where I believe I asked a former council meeting where it's not up to us to be in compliance, correct? It has gone back to the automakers to make available those types of those vehicles that meet that. Is that correct?
So you're actually talking about the advanced truck rule.
Oh, is that the different one? I'm sorry.
Yeah, and that's the regulation form.
Okay.
This is helping agencies like ours and those that are purchasing heavy duty fleets to access funding to help them purchase those vehicles.
So this is the funding aspect, not necessarily the selection process.
Yes, and then that portion of it. And then the other part, which is probably the most critical, is the redefining of what a low and zero and near zero emission engine is. What that will do is that fits what we're doing with our refuse fleet by converting them over to the CNG engines. This will allow us to get a better return on our dollar on all of our investment in that program.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Sure.
Yeah, excellent comprehensive report like everyone else's report. And it's going to be a long year ahead, especially if it doesn't rain.
Yes.
So we'll ask for any public comment. If there's anyone, numbers 916-774-5353. All right, not hearing any phone ring. We'll move to our next item, which is Mr. Walensky's priority legislation for the year, or this month. Next month,
Exactly.
maybe a different priority. I don't know.
Good afternoon, Vice Mayor Hoddeshelt and Councilmember Mendoza. I'm joined this afternoon for this presentation by Rob Becerra, the Police Department's Public Information Officer. And our presentation is an overview of the city's priority list of legislation and other areas of concern or interest. By background, quickly, the legislature is taking further steps this year in an attempt to seek solutions to issues that it was not able to address last year due to the pandemic. Issues such as public safety reforms and the state's housing and homeless crisis. Through executive action this year, the governor has made available for various homeless programs such as Project Home, which is the next phase in the state's response to protecting California's experiencing homelessness and who are at high risk for serious illness and are impacted by COVID-19. The program is administered by the California Department of Housing and Community Development, or HCD, and will include $100 million in grant funding, which is being made available to public entities, including cities, counties, or other local public entities, to purchase and rehabilitate housing, including hotels, motels, vacant apartment buildings, and other buildings, and convert them into or permanent long-term housing. So with that, I'd like to transition to legislation that has been introduced this year, and I'd like to turn this part of the presentation over to Rob Becerra to present the public safety items in the report. Rob?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, great to see both of you. We are anticipating another year of legislative actions that really could have a significant impact on law enforcement. In coordination with, of course, the city's government relations team, we also work hand in hand with the California Police Chiefs Association and the California Officers Association to plan advocacy efforts in a way to improve law enforcement profession, public safety, and then bring forward concerns that we might have to. Our initial analysis shows that we're likely to see about 200 pieces of legislation that could impact law enforcement, and that might seem like a lot, but I will remind you that last cycle we had upwards of 350 pieces of legislation. So a very slim down version. Now, I will quickly go over three pieces of legislation that we feel highlights some of the themes that we're going to see this year. Cooper has proposed AB 18, which disqualifies a person from being a police officer if that person has been discharged from the military for committing an offense that would have been a felony committed in California. I think the other interesting piece to the bill is it also includes someone who has been certified as a police officer, and that same rule would apply. At this point, we've watch position on AB 17 just to see it evolve. Holden has proposed AB 26, which changes the laws around the policies for use of reporting. There are existing laws and existing policy, and we do have some concerns on how this will affect our policy of use of force reporting. Both Cal Chiefs and CPOA both come out in opposition of this, but we have it as a watch to again evolve. And then the last one I'll cover is a Wiener bill, SB 210, which would require agencies to delete or destroy automated license plate recognition system data within 24 hours if it doesn't hit a hot list. And we've seen tremendous value in the use of our LPR data. And we have some pretty significant concerns over the limitations of its use. Because of this, we have an opposed position, as well as our partners in information technology have also taken an opposed position on SB 210. Those are three really quick and brief items that we, again, think that kind of tell the story of what we're going to see. And, of course, with 200 pieces of legislation through, we will certainly be back with a greater update.
Councilmember, any questions for Mr. Baker before?
Thank you, Rob, for the presentation. Just a quick question on the SB 210. I can't, and me being someone formerly in law enforcement, maybe I start citing this because I've only seen one, but can you walk me through what the benefit of SB 210 would be if we didn't? What? I guess I'm just struggling not having the bill on me. I mean, what would be the benefit of having this long 24 hours if it didn't hit the list?
I think what you're asking is the benefit of Wiener's. Is that the question?
It just kind of seems like
Yep.
the information would be very useful outside 24 hours.
I believe the intent of the bill is to not have historical record of a vehicle that potentially was involved in criminal activity, but to not have historical information. Again, the intent of the bill, to my understanding, because that may unduly target that vehicle as a potential vehicle that law enforcement could pull over. So if the data was stored and that vehicle was involved in a criminal activity, months earlier, and that vehicle happened to be in the city, it may be unduly targeted by law enforcement if we see it drive through the city or it flashes up on our LPR technology, and that may give law enforcement information that isn't necessarily connected to that crime. That's
right. I mean, I can think of a scenario where a stolen vehicle, for instance, didn't get updated. But then I look at this where you get a partial plate or a correct plate, something like a Amber Alert or like a witness to a crime, where an O is exposed for a Q, or some of the letters that looked at closely can be transposed commonly. Is there anything in that bill that would kind of find this? Because, I mean, obviously this happened, but again, I'm challenged with, in cases where there's ongoing investigation, it would be a benefit to have this longer than 24 hours. I can think of like our police department and those jurisdictions around us where this would be a more substantial benefit to delete.
And I think your thinking is our same lines, which is why we can oppose position on this piece of legislation, because we we see that tremendous value, as you've noted, in LPR data.
Okay. I just someone who's probably versed in the bill than me, because, you're presenting on it. I just kind of want to get some clarification on it. So thank you.
Mr. Becerra, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad that public safety is part of our law and regulation, and I hope you'll be regular. Well, maybe not really. Maybe some of these will, some of the authors will understand what Councilor Mendoza was saying. The quality of the bills, may not be as wonderful as they think it is. So, but I think public safety, both police and our fire, are an important part of our law and regulation committee. So thank you for your excellent presentation.
Thank you, Rob. And then continuing on with respect to housing, the following 6 housing bills introduced by the Senate Pro Tem, a group of senators working with her on housing production. The city has taken a position on 3 of the bills, but today I'm focusing on the 3 bills the city has taken an opposed position on, which are Senate Bill 6, Senate Bill 7, Senate Bill 9. With respect to Senate Bill 6, the city is taking an opposed position on this bill, as it would allow by right development of housing in commercial zones without regard for use compatibility. Furthermore, the presence of housing could unduly restrict permitted commercial uses from locating in a commercial center because they would cause noise or other conflicts with an existing residential use. With respect to SB 7, again, the city is taking an opposed position on this bill, as it would require the lead agency to prepare an environmental impact report if the state has provided funding, whether an environmental impact report is required or not. Furthermore, the bill will insert the state into a lead agency role by giving the governor the ability to certify a project before the agency has. There is some uncertainty over what this actually means and whether or not the state has that authority, and subsequently the city is taking an opposed position on the bill. Finally, Senate 9, quite simply, the city is opposing the bill because it would seek to eliminate single-family zoning, which would have disastrous impacts for the city. So the city has taken an opposed position on that. With respect to COVID-19 recovery, the Biden administration has released its proposed $1.9 billion American Rescue Plan to change the course of the pandemic, build a bridge toward economic recovery. In addition, address public health and economic crisis head-on. The plan would provide emergency funding to upgrade federal information technology infrastructure and address the recent breaches of federal government data system. The administration recognizes the plan is ambitious, but they believe it is achievable. Pelosi has indicated that the House expects to have the bill finished for a floor vote this week. And then at the state level, Senate Bill 1, the bill was recently enacted to extend the moratorium on evictions for residential rental properties, which would otherwise ended last month. The act includes the same eligibility and program rules as before, and the framework for both SB 91 and the funding that relates to rental assistance is that Placer County has requested the federal funding that was made available through the last federal relief bill that Noel had mentioned. The funds will be available to all eligible renters in Placer County. The county is working on developing the process, provide notification once the process is finalized and ready to accept applications. Renters and landlords will be able to apply for rent and utility arrearages through this program. Placer County, as of last week, has not determined if they will apply for the SB 91 available through the state. SB 91 funds are being overseen and implemented by the Department of Housing and Community Development, or HCD, and they are responsible for oversight of the program. Similarly to the Placer County process, the agency is working on developing the process and the portal where applications will be submitted. Once again, renters will be able to apply for rent and utility arrearages through this program. The agency hopes to have the portal ready next month. The renters, and so once processes for both programs have been established and finalized, open up for renters to be able to apply for, once again, both rental and utility arrearages. With respect to other activities, the Greens Go program. When the California Air Force's Resources Board, CARB, established the Sacramento Area Council of Government, or SACOG's, 19% greenhouse gas reduction target. SACOG was the only region in the state to have its target conditioned on successful implementation of a pilot program. The program, named Green Means Go, is a multi-year pilot program proposed by SACOG to lower the greenhouse gas emissions in the six-county Sacramento region by accelerating infill development, infrastructure investments, and reducing electrifying vehicles. The program would allocate a proportional share of existing state funding to public works infrastructure investments that will create more infill housing opportunities and greater mobility, while also achieving emission reductions. Roseville can continue to be active in advocacy efforts to secure funding for the program and will explore opportunities the program may provide for infrastructure and investment that will create more infill housing and opportunities for greater mobility and emission reductions. And then finally, with respect to local control, last year the City Council passed a resolution to support the effort of an alliance of California cities called California Citizens for Local Control, to make a stronger stand against the state's efforts to weaken the authority for local governments to manage their own land use and housing decisions. Staff has exchanged information with alliance and learned that the initial list of bills they are opposing include SB 9 and SB 10. Which are bills the city has taken an opposed on as well. The Alliance continuing to review the bills as now that the introduction period has ended, and they will revise their list of active bills over the coming weeks. Will remain engaged with the Alliance to identify opportunities to collaborate with them on specific legislation. In conclusion, government relations staff will continue to work with city departments to develop advocacy strategies for each of the bills on the list, and will inform the city, state, and federal representatives regarding the city's position as the bills move through the legislative process. In addition, staff will continue to bring the updated list to the L&R committee for their input and comment on any of the bills or issues. And this concludes the presentation. I'm prepared to answer any questions you may have.
Councilmember Mendoza.
Thank you for your presentation. I had one question on the SB91, the State Rental Assistance Program. I know that in your presentation you had presented that it extends the moratorium on the rental forgiveness, but just something flashed in my mind. For those people who are renting, homes or apartments or whatever they are, and they're paying to a rental agency, not necessarily an individual person, does this bill, by extending moratorium, also extend the credit reporting? So if these people 3, 4, 5 months without making a rental payment because of this SB 91, are they still getting reported 30 days, 60 day, 90 day late? So at some point, the rental forgiveness is not, but it's actually doing them more harm in the long run.
I know that there is a provision in there in SB 91 that addresses the credit reporting. Off my head, I'm not certain. I couldn't tell you specifically, but I will follow up with you and I'll research that and follow up.
I was just curious, if we're giving relief on the front end, but actually penalizing them on the back end. So
I understand the question, and again, I do know that there is language in the bill, but I'd have to research it.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Housing, this is going to be the year of housing, isn't it?
I'm sorry?
This is going to be the year of housing, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank our entire staff. I mean, we have an asset here, and we're fortunate to have this asset and to have your participation. So thank you. I don't have any specific questions. I will do one final call for public comment. Thank you. If you're interested on anything, 916-774-553. We'll wait 30 seconds to see if we have callers. Waiting. We meet the I don't know what day of the week it is. This is Wednesday, right? So we meet. This is the normal time and place for our meeting. Wednesday, 4 o'clock. I don't know.
Yep.
Our next meeting will be March 24th.
Yes. Yes.
It's interesting how February and March, the dates,
It's nice when that
the
happens.
dates fall
that
on the
way.
same day. So,
28 days.
well, nothing else for us. I want to thank everybody for their awesome excellent presentation. We are adjourned.